Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 29th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Good, Derek. Yeah, another game tomorrow. They're coming thick and fast, aren't they? So, press conference day as well. Got lots of content on the website. So, busy as ever, but looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, lots coming your way today, folks. We'll get an opportunity to speak to Michael Beale. We'll get a all-important injury update ahead of tomorrow. Big game against Aberdeen. It always is when they come up against Rangers. So let's hope that they can continue that winning form and the defensively minded form as well. We'll talk about the clean sheet shortly. Before we do that, other news emerging. Other news after we came off the video. Rangers releasing kit number 4 for the season. It is now available. It was released on sale at 9 o'clock this morning. You can get it both in store and online, folks. Joshua, it's a bit out there, I've got to say. It's red with almost chevron sort of blue dashes across the shirt and the collar. I've got to say, I'm a big fan of the collar. It reminds me of a shirt I had in the 90s, 94, 95, I think it was. The away kit, it was that sort of baseball jersey, red shirt with black pinstripes. It was an absolute beauty. So there's almost taken inspiration from that. They will wear it. They will debut the jersey next week when they go to Limassol to play Aris in the Europa League. So there you go, Josh. Are you a fan of it?
I quite like it. I actually quite like all 4 kits, which I feel like you're maybe not allowed to say that, but I do. I agree with Francis there. Like them all. It maybe get a 7 or 8 out of 10 from me. My favourite is still the Thirds kit. So yeah, pretty happy with it. And I can't say I was around for that 94, 95 kit, but I'll take your word for it that it's similar.
It was an absolute belter. Let us know in the comments, folks, although not everyone is too enamoured with it. James Butler says that Aberdeen 90s kit. It does look, I have got to say, looking at it again there, yeah, there's sort of hints of that, but the Northtown kit, if I'm not mistaken, James. But yeah, there's the Rangers jersey, and we are giving away a shirt, folks. If you head over to our Twitter account, all you have to do is follow and retweet the tweet we've put out, and Joshua will DM the winner next Friday. So a cracking giveaway if you want that new jersey. Right, let's talk about Rangers ahead of tomorrow. Joshua, Aberdeen coming down to Ibrox. We'll have our predicted teams on the website later on today. Looking at the face of it, though, I think Michael Beale may be forced into some enforced changes given the injury to Kemar Roofe. I think he's got a decision to make at left back. That aside, I'm just trying to think are there any other possible changes, do you reckon, from Livingston in midweek?
I think he'd want to keep as much continuity with that team selection as possible, because I think it was one of Rangers' better performances. Without being kind of outstanding, I thought it was more cohesive. I thought the team altogether looked more comfortable in the ball. So I think you'd want to keep as many components of that team together as possible. For example, I think you'll see Lammers, Tavernier and Cifuentes and that kind of same trio on the right. If Ridvan's fit, if it was only cramp, you'd imagine he would be fine. Would like to see him play again. I think the difficulty he's had with Ridvan so far is that whenever he's had one of these games, and I think this was better than previous games. He had his moment, as we spoke about yesterday, but then that's always been followed up with him not going into the team. And if you look ahead to next Thursday, he's not in the European squad, as kind of Beale explained why recently. Whether that's the right decision or not, I guess remains to be seen. But if you think hypothetically, if he wasn't to play tomorrow and Barisic was to come back for that game midweek anyway, and maybe stays in for the St Mirren game, then perhaps it's just another occasion where Ridvan's made that impression and not been able to kick on. So I'm crossing my fingers that he stays in at left back. And aside from that, I don't think there will be too many changes, because the manager said that Raskin and Dowell might be, I believe it was a St Mirren game that he might see them at. Yeah, but we'll get an update on that today at the press conference, as you say. But I think he'll want to keep it as close to the team that played in midweek as possible. They've not had much time in between the games, but only a couple more until the international break. So yeah, I guess Dessers will come in for Roofe up top, and remains to be seen how that kind of impacts the dynamic of the team and what kind of impact he can have.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would like to see Ridvan tomorrow. Nothing against Bonner, who I felt has been pretty decent this season so far. I've got no real complaints. Just think he just offers Rangers a different dynamic. As we say, Bonner Barisic is not scoring that goal in a million years that Ridvan did in midweek. He just offers something different, Joshua, something exciting, I think. And we've been discussing this for a number of weeks now. Rangers are not exciting to watch. They're very laborious, and it's people. You hear people saying it's a chore going to watch Rangers at this moment in time. So I think Ridvan offers a bit of creativity, a bit of dynamism, and excitement that gets bums off seats.
So it was an exciting moment, wasn't it? You're right, because there's not been many moments this season where either it's a team goal or it's a goal at a big moment in a game, or it's an individual goal where you kind of you have a bit of a wow moment and it kind of takes you back. And that goal running the full length of the pitch with his second start of the season, the pace that he picked up was that. And I think beyond the fact that Barisic doesn't score that goal, whatever, I don't think many left backs or many defenders in the squad score that goal. I just think it's I just think he gives you a lot more options in the ball. You know, what we'll come on to talk about a bit today, what the article on the website is this morning focuses on how Rangers just had more options out wide, where they had more space to play in, where, you know, when the ball was shifted side to side, Livingston trying to protect space around the ball. I think on the right, the different profiles and the rotations gave Rangers options, but on the left, just Ridvan's ability to play it forward for the first goal, but then carry it through the pitch for the second. I think he just gives you more options. You also see him pop up inside the pitch at different points as well. And I think if you'd seen, for example, if it was Matondo and Raskin next to him, you'd have seen the similar kind of extent of rotations on the left side that you saw on the right-hand side. But, you know, I don't think Jack's going to kind of give you this. He's not going to give you the same ball carrying ability as Raskin maybe, or the ball carrying ability that Cantwell has. So it maybe didn't change as much, but their two profiles, I thought they worked really well together.
Yeah. Thank you to Denzel, incidentally, because my mic wasn't on. He says, I think your mic's down again, Derek. So it's on now, Denzel. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Just on Bonner, Mark Heights with a valid point here. He says, Sima isn't scoring without Bonner's assist. That is in his locker. Of course, it was a fantastic pass from Barisic into Sima, and then courtesy of that deflection from the Lucas wrapped things up. Maka with an interesting comparison here, Joshua, just on Ridvan. Morning all. Hopefully Ridvan's fit. You see what he brings, same as Zinchenko does for Arsenal. He's a decent player and a half, but I get your point, Maka. So, listen, I think we both would like to see Ridvan starting. As I mentioned there, the other, I think player that we won't be seeing at the weekend is Kemar Roofe. Interestingly, Michael Beale, when he was discussing him in his post-match interview, Joshua, saying that he should have came off earlier and he just soldiered on. Not best pleased. I'd imagine that he decided not to call over towards the bench and get subbed before he came off. Is Cyril Dessers the like-for-like replacement, or do Rangers alter things up top?
I think he's got to be. I don't think there's no real other options, and I think it'd be quite a statement if Beale wasn't to play Dessers when he is the kind of only fit striking option tomorrow. Roofe has looked to get over his injury issues so far this season, and I know people always come back to that and say, but he'll always will get an injury, and I think there is some reality in that. If you've had that many injuries, even if, as was the case this summer, he has that, I think it was a hip operation, and that kind of cleared up. It gave him 3 or 4 months rehab that he's not taken, and that got to the root of some issues. But when you've had as many injuries as he has, I guess it's always going to be a delicate balance to ensure that you're able to play however many games. When he was speaking in midweek, he did the press conference, obviously, before the Livingston game. He did but he did say that he hoped he would be able to play 3 games a week at some point. So I think that shows you the discussions maybe that he's having and the where he is compared to where he was in terms of his injuries. But you just got to hope it's not serious, because whether it be, I thought he played a really interesting role in midweek, where he was kind of playing that deep lying forward role that we've not seen in a while, and that helped create an extra man, or it helped pull someone out of the defence. bit of a throwback, but he's just such an intelligent player wherever he plays. If he's fully fit, he does play. So fingers crossed that's not too serious. Maybe it's one where there's only 3 games between now and the international break, and you don't risk him between now and then. I think even when he's been fully fit in the first season, especially, he had those periods where he was out for a few games, and I guess that's just what you're always going to get with a player of his quality. The injury issues is why he's not kind of played at a higher level, but fingers crossed it's not serious, because as everyone knows, when he's fit, he's one of, if not Rangers' best options in that area, and I think he's shown that so far this season.
Yeah, John Adams with the point, is this a new injury for Roof? It was a groin issue is why he came off in midweek, John. We'll get the full extent of that when we speak to Michael Beale a little later on. And Denzel with the point on the Beale-Roof relationship. He says, I always feel there's a bit of edge in that Beale-Roof relationship. I've seen some byplay from the pitch to the bench too. So that's an interesting point there. Just as before we look at the defence, well, first of all, good morning to CB, who's tuning in from Belgium. He's an Antwerp fan, so good to have you your company, buddy. And John C. Turner says, Derek and Josh, I can only watch live a couple of times per week. Is there a way for you to stream the audio only via the app so I don't chew through too much data? Podcasts are a few hours behind. I'll look into that for you, John. There isn't
Spotify is probably the best option for that, Derek, isn't it? Because they're I think it's on Apple Podcasts as well. So.
Yep, it is on Apple, it is on Spotify, John. If you have those apps, that might be the best option for you. As soon as me and Joshua come off, it does get downloaded to those streaming platforms, because I know that many of you tune in and listen to the audio as opposed to watching our lovely faces on YouTube. Right, Joshua, let's talk about the defence, because Rangers, that is now 4 clean sheets on the bounce. Now, they weren't really tested, I've got to say, in midweek, but it's building blocks. Of course, you need a tight-knit defence, and Rangers had been conceding sloppy, silly goals prior to that. They seem to have nipped that in the bud. It can only be a good thing, and is it coincidence that they've looked more solid since Ben Davies has come back?
Yeah, I guess it's something we've not really touched upon, because although you're 4 clean sheets in, and I think there's been some good defensive performances in there. I thought against Betis, I was away on holiday, but following all your guys' stuff, looking at the kind of numbers from that game, and whenever Rangers beat a big European team, the narrative always is the same, that they didn't deserve it, that they didn't dominate the ball or whatever. And I think as the kind of shots, the XG showed in that game, Betis had control and they had dangerous moments, but the areas that they were shooting from, I still think that showed Rangers' defence up in a good light. I think it was a really good defensive showing by the whole team overall. St Johnstone away as well, you don't concede many chances at all. Compare that to Motherwell at home, and it wasn't a great defensive performance, but we wrote about that on the website. I think some of the structural issues that led to that, Rangers going to a back 5 instead of it being a back 3 and kind of inviting pressure. But I thought in midweek it was back to the kind of solidity that we have seen a bit since Ben Davies came into the team. I don't think anyone, Suter, I think, has so many redeeming qualities as a centre back. I think this season you can't deny that he's had quite a few moments that have been costly and led to goals conceded. Whether that's dependent on the fact that he's played the majority of his football as a right-sided centre-back, sometimes even on the right side of a 3. If you compare that to the left side of a 2, I'd imagine that's quite a difference. And sometimes you think of the Kilmarnock goal on the first day of the season. I think if that's a left-footed centre-back, maybe that he doesn't concede that, right? The ball doesn't get stuck under his foot, because instead of kind of cutting across your body and trying to play on your favoured foot, you can swing in with your natural side. And Suter isn't someone, he always plays on his right hand side. I think that can work well if you're carrying. He's such a strong ball carrier, but yeah, at points I don't think you can deny that he's had a few dodgy moments. And Davies, again, I thought when he came in last season and he became a bit of a lightning rod. There's no doubt that he's not a physical centre back who's going to win every single header. I think that's quite obvious. You've even seen that a couple of moments in the Livingston game, and that is something that at points in Scottish football I think can be problematic. You cast your mind back to Kilmarnock, 3-2 win there last season, but I still don't think he's had the number of mistakes or the number of poor performances, I don't think you could point to an abundance of moments where you say he's not good enough at all. I think generally he's had quite quiet 7 out of 10 games and went about his business. And I think when it comes to defending on the ground and anticipating, there was that one moment he had the second half of the Betis game where I thought kind of summed up what his defending was about. And since he's come back, and you can't really deny that numerically anyway, Rangers have looked better defensively last season. That Goldson and Davies partnership over the kind of Christmas period was the one that kind of garnered most success, and he also, I think everyone's aware of what he brings on the ball. So yeah, it's only 4 games in, but in my opinion, it has looked a little bit better for whatever reason that may be, if it's just a player on his natural side or not. I don't know what you think about it, because it's something obviously we spoke quite a lot about last season.
Yeah, I think they'll just look more solid at this moment in time now. The Betis game was a big one for me. I think that was Ben Davies's best game in a Rangers jersey. He just looks assured, looks more comfortable on that left-hand side. I know that a few comments come in saying it's not no John Souttar. He's happy to play there, but it's not his favoured position. He would rather be on the right-hand side. And Connor Goldson is probably one of the first names in the team sheet. So he's not been dropped for John Souttar. I agree with you. I think last season, and I'm sure there's still supporters out there that are still unconvinced about Ben Davies in terms of his physicality. I get that, but I'm a fan of him. I like him.
Yeah.
I think he just offers Rangers a bit of balance down that left-hand side. I know there was a comment came in yesterday as well saying that maybe that's why Ridvan plays well as well, because he's got Ben Davies on that left-hand side with him. So, listen, it's, long may it continue. I think there'll be the centre-back pairing tomorrow against Aberdeen. Listen, I think they'll be up against a better side than what Livingston were. This will be an Aberdeen team coming down that will be looking to get one over Rangers. They don't often do that when they come to Glasgow, but hopefully this Rangers side are well aware of the task in hand and go out there and get another 3 points. You done an interesting tactical piece on the website, folks, and the link is in the description box. Do go and check it out with regards to the wide areas, the usual problematic wide areas for Rangers. A lot of fans thinking we don't offer enough. There's not enough width in the team, Joshua. But Rangers managed to get past Livingston down both flanks. Michael Beale did touch on it in his post-match press conference as well. How did they do so, and does it give a little bit of encouragement going forward that Rangers have sussed out how to forage down both flanks?
I think 2 common criticisms when we've done these videos, Derek, since the heavy optimism of August has been the Rangers don't have enough pace in the team or the front line, and I think Sima's running in behind, just taking the defenders where they didn't want to go, not always looking for the ball to feet. I think that you saw the benefit of that in midweek, but also the way that they used the wide areas. I don't think that Rangers, I think Rangers always play with width because they always have their fullbacks wide. I think the question is more how dangerous is that width, whether it be directly the chances that players are creating from those areas or indirectly the space that they're opening up for other players. So I think at the weekend against Motherwell for the goal, it worked well where because you've got those 2 wide fullbacks, it creates space in the middle for your number 10s to go and create. That only worked once in the whole game, right enough, and that's where the issue comes into it. But I guess every manager has, and I thought Beale's comments in the press conference and on Viaplay were really interesting when he's talking about freedom in the final third and relationships and stuff we touched on yesterday. But I guess all managers are trying to create what specific attacking type of situation. Some might want to create 1v1s out wide, some it might be about crosses, some it might be about transitions. And I think for Beale, everything centres around the fact that he wants these players like Lammers and Campbell or Tillman, to go back to last season, in Kent, to get on the ball in central areas where they're closer to goal, where they can combine with one another, where they've got the freedom to get on the ball and impact things. I think that worked well last season. I think that's one of the reasons why, outside of that game away at Aberdeen, Rangers did have quite a good record in the kind of run-of-the-mill matches that they'd struggled to for the duration of the season up to that point until Beale arrived. It's not clicked this season. It's not looked fluid, and I think it did look more fluid at the weekend in midweek. And whether that just comes into players having played more again, Beale seems to keep reiterating this word relationships. And I thought was interesting in the post-match press conference was actually Stevie that asked him about it when he was asked about, have you changed stuff? Because effectively it looked better tonight in the wide areas. Instead of saying, I did this, Beale spoke about what the players did themselves. Now, I don't think that was so much to kind of cast the attention away from himself, but more about the, I guess, the responsibility that players have in the final third within these triangles. So, especially on the right, we spoke about the left, where I think Ridvan just gives you more options and contrast that profile to Seema running and behind. That was really dangerous, had a lot of energy, which upset Livingston. But on the right, you had three players in Tavernier, Cifuentes and Lammers who were all comfortable in different areas. So Tavernier's a right back here, Lammers starts as a number 10 and Cifuentes is the midfielder. But they moved into a variety of different positions, and I think that just gives you different problems. You're not always defending the same situation. You can see Lammers here is up against Nubly. It was 5 successful dribbles Lammers had. We can maybe come on to talk about him a bit, Derek, but you're isolating. If you have Lammers in the ball in those wide areas, theoretically, I think that gives you different problems if you're Livingston compared to Tavernier, because not only can you kind of take your man on 1v1, but you can cut inside onto your left foot, play at different angles. Then you had times where you had Cifuentes was the one who was running beyond from the middle of the pitch, kind of untracked. And then you had points as well where it was Tavernier who was on the outside and Lammers in the pocket. So you just had variation. And if you look at Tavernier's touch map, for example, here, you can see that quite frequently he was moving inside the pitch. And I think that works well from at points because, again, it makes Rangers less predictable. It's not always the fullbacks on the outside looking to play the final ball, changes the angles that defences have to defend that. And I just think that all round the football at the moment, the top level in the Premier League, you see teams have variety. They have different options to try and break down defences in game because I guess just the attention to detail now with how teams are trying to stop you defensively. So you had Tavernier a lot in getting touches inside, but then you had Lammers as well. Look how frequently he was getting on the ball by the touchline. Again, we can maybe come on to talk about him, Derek, but I just think that gives Rangers a different option that they maybe had with the likes of Kent and Sakala last season, where although you're not playing wingers, theoretically at points your creators are moving wide to give you a little bit of a different threat. So I thought overall that's kind of what helped make the difference alongside the basic stuff, which is that Rangers looked after the ball better. I think they moved it a bit quicker and all those things kind of make the big difference at home, isn't it? Especially when you've got a crowd that's expectant and has been frustrated a few days before in that Motherwell game.
Yeah, interesting. Like you said, we'll touch on Lammers. First of all, CB, our Belgian Antwerp fan, says, good luck tomorrow. So that's kind of you to say so, buddy. Thank you for your kind words. Sam Lammers, you mentioned there, he was over on that right-hand side a lot, but is his best position just giving them that free roll, Todd Cantwell style lead? Do you think Joshua letting them just roam and create?
I think the Lammers had a good first half. He has attracted a lot of criticism recently, and I think there's some fairness in that. For example, we wrote about this on the website. Is where he was taking shots from against Motherwell. I think he took 7 shots, and none of them were particularly dangerous.
He had a poor sort of tame pass back.
But you compare that to his feet in some moments in that game against Livingston. I think it's so impressive. I just think it's that final action at points that's just missing. The final pass. He's a couple of goals or a couple of assists away from people maybe recognising what he's bringing in different areas. And again, that maybe comes into confidence a bit. I don't think you can question his technical ability. And I think when he is in that free role, as is the case with Cantwell at points, if you think to the previous Livingston game, the 4-0 game, I thought they linked up well in the first half there as well. It's just that consistency of performance that hasn't arrived. And as we spoke about yesterday, the thing is, at a club like Rangers, you just don't have the luxury of time, and that's why it's unique pressures, because you don't have the luxury of time to get up to speed for a number of months and then show your best form. You kind of have to win to buy yourself the time to guess the best results out of yourself as an individual. So I think he's had a few games where he's looked not that effective. Lammers, I still think he's waiting for again those moments in the final third to really properly impact and maybe make decisive actions in games. But I think you still are seeing a lot, and you saw it in moments at the weekend how he can be effective against low blocks. And although he's not the quickest, I think 1v1 he's so good. He gives you so many options, and he is quite literally 2-footed, isn't he? There was that moment though in the first half where he did brilliantly, got the ball wide, went past 2 players, and then tripped over himself. And I think that kind of summed up elements, maybe not overall, because I think that's unfair, but elements of his Rangers career so far, with that final action, that final pass. And that's the one that people remember. They don't remember the couple of Stepo overs before it, as Boba Fett says there. That end product at points is still missing. So hopefully it arrives soon. But I think that right-sided triangle of Cifuentes and Tavernier and Lammers looked good. I think that will continue at the weekends. If you can compare that to the left-hand side, if you maybe add a Cantwell or a Raskin in there alongside a Sima and a Ridvan, then suddenly I think things look a lot better than they did against Motherwell. But Rangers are still in a situation, Derek, where they need to win. Certainly the 2 domestic games, but I think as well a good performance in Europe wouldn't go amiss, because it was a good performance, but it was only one performance, and they need more of those over the next few games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough night for them next week at Cyprus. It is always the case. It's going to be energy sapping over there with the heat and what have you. So we'll concentrate on that when it comes. But Aberdeen is a huge game tomorrow. Rangers need to pick up 3 points. Just on Lammers, few comments coming in. William with a point. There is definitely a player in Lammers. He scores if Roof wasn't in the road to deflect his shot. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Stuart Ballantyne, though, not having him. Lammers has been a letdown so far. One thing going for him is he's playing right wing a 10 in their positions he's never played till now. There certainly is a player in Lammers. Like you say, Josh, I think it's just he's waiting for his Ridvan moment, perhaps. Just to announce himself, I think, and that would appease the supporters somewhat. I think the majority of them can see that he does have the talent, but it's just some of his decision-making at times just has to get better. And again, it might echo back to the relationships that Michael Beale touched on in his press conference as well, and just fine-tuning that. But like you say, at Rangers, you don't really get time. DJ Techno Trance with the point. We'll address this one. He says, do you guys think he will go more with this back 3 we saw in midweek? Wouldn't be surprised to see him adopt that at some point in the game tomorrow, Joshua. I thought it looked pretty decent when he has deployed it, and there was a few comments come in saying about the Sterling move where Tav was pushed up one. It's good to see Rangers trying these things in games, isn't it? So they are fluid, they can change within game if they need to.
Yeah, and as we said yesterday, you kind of need to fit a player in there because Sterling's come to play games, and maybe that gives you different options at different times, as long as it's a back 3 and not what happened against Motherwell, which it did become a back 5, and I think just invite pressure, although it gave maybe Rangers a bit more balance behind the ball, is what Beale said in the first half. I don't know how frequently we'll see this, because I feel like we've heard it quite a lot from Beale since he arrived. But he does. We wrote about it as a piece on the website in the tactics section. Rangers go to a back 3 when they have the ball all the time, most of the time, and I think that's because they want their centre backs to, especially when Davies is playing, be passing from wider areas. And they want to kind of stretch the opposition's first line as much as possible. But starting in a back 3 against the ball is quite a different thing altogether, because instead of Tavernier then, for example, staying in line with his back 4 off the ball or being up against the winger, he's up a line as mentioned. And Tavernier's role, which we just spoke upon in the first half, I think especially as he's 32, he's played a lot of games. Some people think he's slowed up this season. It's inevitable he will at one point. I do think you've got to look at different ways to accommodate different players and not always just rely on the same thing, which is that 4 years ago, Barisic and Tavernier could get up and down the line consistently. Can they do that? Still do that to the same degree consistently? Probably not, because they're a few years older. And that's just life, isn't it? So looking at different options to get the best out of them, I think makes sense. And yeah, Sterling has come to play games. Like Beale said in midweek, it's been difficult to leave him out. I'll be surprised if we see it before the international break, maybe away in Europe, you never know. But yes, certainly an option that he's cited quite a lot since pre-season.
Yeah. And as Thomas says, in most games we have played sort of 3-4 fluid formations. We'll just finish up, Francis, with a question here. What time's the presser today, Derek? Around about 12:45, 1 o'clock is the time for the press conference, Francis. So as ever, we'll have all the usual content from Michael Beale's press conference at the Rangers training centre, and whatever player is put up to speak to the press as well. So a lot coming your way. There will be a couple of members' videos coming your way as well for the YouTube members. Joshua's doing his tactical piece on there. I'll be on with Johnny for the weekly Q&A show a little later on this afternoon. So if you want to get your point across, I'll get the video sorted after this, and just get your points in, and we'll answer as many of them as we possibly can. Right, Joshua, before you go, what's the scoreline going to be at Ibrox tomorrow?
I'll say 3-1. Be quite optimistic. I think that might suit Rangers a bit more.
In the goal, are we?
Yeah. Well, that would break the last few games. I think these type of games are against Aberdeen and Ibrox are always big games, and I think that's probably what Beale would want, to try and build a bit more momentum, and it might just suit them because of the atmosphere if Aberdeen have to come out a little bit more. So I'll say 3-1. You can't say that because I've said that. So what about you?
No, I'm going 2-0. I fancy Rangers tomorrow. I say fancy Rangers tomorrow. I just want to see another solid performance, something there to enjoy for the fans that are making their way to Ibrox as well. It's not really been an enjoyable venue to go to of late, so I'm just hoping that the fans leave with smiles on their faces tomorrow and Rangers get a much needed 3 points. And Stephen Maguire agrees with me. Good scoreline, buddy. Let's hope that Rangers can do the business. Right, that'll do us there. As I mentioned, we'll be back a little later on. If we don't see you, then enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend. Bye for now.